Alright, The Watcher came out on Netflix recently. It's a show based on a true story about a stalker like situation with a family who recently moved into their dream house. It's been number one on Netflix for at least a week at this point, and this show was solid for about an episode and a half and then just completely went off the rails. It's also wildly inaccurate compared to the actual story. You know, that's going to happen when they make real stories into TV shows and stuff. They're going to embellish and try to make them entertaining. But this one, borderline didn't give a fuck about the story. So, there'll be spoilers. If you're here, like and subscribe and all that shit, let's get into it. I'm going to review and talk about why the story was kind of shit and some of the stuff they changed. I'm not going to go fully into the real story. I would just recommend you read the article. It's pretty long, so I'm not going to go through that whole thing here, but I'll just go ahead and tell you now, there'll be spoilers, and the only thing that really they stuck to was that there was letters. So the first episode, I actually like to set up quite a bit. We get a family, the Brannocks, trying to move from New York City to the suburbs in New Jersey, and they find their dream home. The father of this family, Dean, essentially gives away his entire life savings and retirement and everything to get the house. They decide to do some renovations, and they have this weird encounter with a neighbor about arugula. You probably saw it in the trailer. Then they get a threatening weird letter in the mail, and the mother, Nora, and the father and husband, Dean, are a little bit freaked out. Nora wants to move pretty much right away, and Dean says no. They have some more weird encounters with neighbors. One who seems like he's a little bit slow, just kind of walking into their house with a newspaper and stuff. His sister, who's this hippie lady, is obsessed with the trees and protecting them, and the dumbwaiter and just preserving the house type thing. The slow neighbor, who's the one who brings the newspapers, he kind of just randomly keeps popping in the dumbwaiter and stuff. And then we have two kids in the family, Ellie and Carter. And obviously they're freaked out. And there's some other shit, like there's music playing from places that no one was in the house. And, you know, it's a pretty intense first episode because you don't really know what's going on, just that they're being fucked with. They kind of went for like the Strangers type vibe. And the first episode was pretty solid in that regard. But the accuracy didn't even survive the first episode. So I'm pretty much going to sum up the real story here. And, you know, just the broad strokes. I'm not going to go way into it. It's a bit odd considering that the producers were so inaccurate with this show because they're the same ones who did the Dahmer show that just came out. And that one was pretty much as accurate as you could make a TV show based on Jeffrey Dahmer. I mean, obviously, they embellish a little bit here and there, but you can see the real clips of stuff like the girl freaking out in court and all that stuff. The thing with him getting pulled over by the cops and he has the dead body parts in the trash bag and gets sent home. That's all real, which is insane. But anyway, that's a better show than this one. So the real story, I would just recommend Googling The Watcher real story. You can find the article in like 2 seconds. But essentially, this family bought this house in 2014, and the letters shown in the show that they read out are pretty much verbatim from what they got in real life. But that's pretty much where it ends for the show. Because in real life, the family never even moves into the house. And I get why they would put them in the house, you know, for drama and to make it a little bit more intense and all that. But like, the family never had a pet killed, which is how episode 1 ends. Most of the actual story was that it went on for like 4 years. And it was mainly just legal stuff that they dealt with. And the husband kind of going a little bit crazy trying to catch the person. And eventually they sold the house at a loss. So pretty much this entire show, after you get past the letters, is just fiction. Like, they really loosely took some stuff from real life. And I'll bring that up when we get to it in the story. And, you know, that would be fine if they went off the rails and did their own thing with fiction, if it was good. But about halfway through the series, pretty much they just start blaming the husband for everything, and everyone just becomes an absolute moron. And there's just a lot of unnecessary filler type drama that doesn't really pan out to anything. So let's just keep going. Second episode happens. Cops are still saying they can't do anything. They hire a private investigator or a PI to look into it. Nora goes and visits her friend Karen, who is the realtor who sold them the house. And Karen's pretty much a giant cunt throughout the entire show. She's played by Stifler's mom, and she encourages them just to sell the house at a loss, like immediately. They hire a security guy instead to install sensors on all the windows and doors, 10 cameras all around the house. And this is all fine. I think this is pretty reasonable for what someone in this situation would do. Trying to deal with threatening letters like this. And for me, this is about where the show goes crazy. So Dean hunts down the guy who sold the house to the LLC that they bought it from. And that's a big thing in this show, is people just buying houses with LLCs so they can buy them anonymously. I don't really understand the reason for it, but it's like a thing throughout the whole show. So this previous owner guy got letters too and went crazy. His wife killed herself. You get his whole backstory. And his son walked in on the neighbors doing some sort of blood cult ritual, like sacrifice deal. And it's weird because this show doesn't have anything to do with politics. But Netflix is obviously super left-wing, just in general. And they use this opportunity to take shots at like Alex Jones and QAnon and those type of people. But it's kind of, it just seems really random, so it's whatever. Like they talk about eating babies and how when they're scared they give off adrenochrome and all crazy shit. So they've made the neighbors insane baby murderers who kill and I guess drink the blood of infants at this point. And the real story is that one person lived in the house for like 23 years before this family bought it, and she never had an issue. The wife and kids go to stay in a Motel 6, and the husband wants to stay at the house to try to catch the person. So here, the daughter, Ellie, starts talking to Dakota, who's the security guy. She's 16, he's 19. This is legal in New Jersey because essentially, if age of consent is 16, you have like a 4-year window that is allowed, and then the age of consent becomes 18. That's how it works in most states. I'm not a fucking expert. But essentially, this is so you can't have a high school senior get arrested for dating a sophomore or freshman in high school. It kind of seems to be the logic behind this. Either way. So she's white, he's black. I'm only bringing that up because it becomes relevant later. Completely fucking unnecessarily, but it does. So the next day, Dean gets into a fight with the neighbor again about the renovations he's doing inside his own house. And then he goes to work, and he thought he was going to be made partner, which he needed to afford this house, and they didn't make him partner. So he's pissed. Dean and Ellie, the father and daughter, have ongoing fights because she's wearing makeup and lipstick and, typical high school shit. And more weird shit's happening in the house randomly. The next day, the neighbor that he argued with, her son comes and yells at him that she had cancer. So the husband shot her in the face and then himself. And the one weird neighbor, who's like kind of the slow guy, is just standing outside because he already kicked him out of the house at this point and threatened him not to come back. So he's just standing there staring, like trying to look creepy, essentially. So yeah, the first episode and a half was pretty solid setup, and then they just kind of go crazy with this baby eating shit and this homicide that's fake that you find out later. It just goes fucking nuts. So episode 3, we start off and Dean has, the stereotypical Hollywood conspiracy web of suspects with strings all over the place on a corkboard. And it's him and the PI, and they're talking about the blood sacrifices. The cops, who they've been to already a few times, still won't do anything. And we go to Nora and Karen at the country club, where Karen starts encouraging Nora to divorce Dean, take his money, and fuck him over with the house because she's a cunt. Dean and Ellie are bickering again because she's locking her door. And there's this weird dorky guy who Dean thinks is the home inspector. He comes over, and he's just kind of a weirdo. And Dean finds out that he wasn't a home inspector when he talks to his contractor in the basement. And the weird guy, before he leaves, tells Dean that Ellie and Dakota have some kind of intimate relationship. The PI tells Dean, come meet her. She tells him the whole story about how the weird guy was a murderer that killed his whole family and disappeared. And it's actually straight from a Forensic Files episode, or one of those shows like that. Because my wife recognized the story pretty much right away. But yeah, this entire episode was like this, like essentially forensic file ripoff. Dean tries to apologize to the slow neighbor, Jasper, and the weird hippie neighbor is pretty much told to fuck off. So he leaves for work, and the kids leave, and Nora finds another letter in the mailbox, and that's where this one ends. And this is the kind of shit that I'm talking about when I say there's a lot of filler. This episode, it just goes on about this blood sacrifice shit, which we never find out if it's true or not. I think you're supposed to assume that it's not. He finds out about the murders in the house, and then like half the episode is this flashback to the murderer guy. So there's not really much to say. It's like oh yeah, and Dean is more focused on the house than he is having sex with Nora, so she gets mad. And the whole show just kind of lives off of this petty, unnecessary drama. And these filler arcs that don't pay off for anything. Like all this shit they just bring up, and then it just goes away. And really, this show probably should have been about 2 episodes, stuck more closely to the real story, and just left it at that. Maybe 3 episodes if you really want to milk it. But 7 was clearly way too much because so much of it just kind of fizzles out to nothing. So, the next episode, episode 4, we start off and Nora is pissed off at Dean. She has a thumb drive in her hand saying that he ruined their family. We get a flashback to a week earlier. Dean, Nora, and Karen go to Karen's realtor boss who sold them the house, and they're complaining that there was a mass murder in the house and they didn't know. It's essentially illegal in New Jersey, so he didn't have to tell them unless they explicitly asked. But the murder was hidden anyway, so no one even knows about it. And it's interesting because this is actually something that happened in real life, where the family tried to sue the previous owner under the guise of saying that they knew that this was going on, but because that's the law in New Jersey, they were pretty much told to fuck off and the case was thrown out. So anyway, they're having this heated exchange with this realtor guy. Dean gets pissed off and mentions suing, and then the guy says fuck you and leaves. So we go, and Dean is looking, kind of obsessed with this mass murder that was hidden. We go to Ellie, who's texting Dakota, and she's sending pictures of herself in her underwear. And then Dakota's at the house the next morning talking to Dean because the camera went on the fritz. And, they do the whole, an animal probably chewed through a wire type thing. Whatever. Nora, Dean, and the PI are arguing in front of the conspiracy web they have set up. The PI says it could be Dakota because he had reason to financially, since obviously he installed the security system for him. So they set up this stuff where they hack into his Wi-Fi illegally, and huge contrivance. His online name is The Watcher. Obviously, it turns out to be some nickname he had from when he was a kid. But it is interesting that the real guy in real life did try to do something similar, but he was unable to. He tried to hack into his neighbor's Wi-Fi's to see if he could find something to incriminate one of them. But I guess he either couldn't do it or the guy that he hired wasn't capable. I'm not sure the details. So Dean and Nora plot to get Ellie's phone because now they're concerned that Dakota's the Watcher and then has this relationship with their daughter. So they do this whole routine at dinner. Dean goes and grabs her phone in her room, finds the photo, cuts her off from technology, grounds her, all the shit a normal dad would do. Dean loses his shit on Dakota the next morning and calls the cops. The cops say they can't arrest him for an online nickname, essentially, and that the relationship is legal like I explained earlier. So Dakota offers his own DNA to compare to the envelopes to prove his own innocence. And this is like the really stupid drama we get. And it's stupid because it's unnecessary. It's really poorly done. So when everybody's out of the house, Ellie goes and grabs an iPad and streams a video online about how she's dating an African American and her dad has grounded her because he's a racist. So people at his job and shit see this. And like Nora gets suspended from the country club. Like this is the type of shit that I don't know how as a parent you could not lose your fucking mind. So that's what happens is Dean comes home and freaks the fuck out like you would expect. He smashes her phone up, but then Nora gets mad at him. Like their daughter could have and probably did ruin their lives. Like you can't come back from that shit. He could have lost his job. They could lose everything. And the wife is mad at him. And I'll just go ahead and say, if this was my kid, they'd be living in fucking solitary. They'd have a mattress and just books, and that would be it. Yeah, so this is where the show gets really fucking stupid. On top of how stupid this entire thing already was. And this is also like, I hate getting into political stuff too much. But literally the entire show, Dean just gets blamed for everything. Even though I wouldn't say he's being completely rational the entire time. The stuff that he's doing is reasonable the entire time. And that's how most people would respond. But whatever. It's always got to be the, man bad, woman right, all that bullshit we see and everything now. So anyway, this is where everybody gets fucking stupid. Dakota sets up a camera in the bedroom without telling them to try to see if Dean was the one doing it himself or to prove his innocence. And I assume that this is fucking illegal. I can't imagine that if you tell a security guy, yeah, put cameras outside my house, that they can just secretly install cameras in your house. And this doesn't even get addressed. So a video gets sent of Dean's boss to Dean's boss of him asleep in bed with some young girl walking around the bedroom in like lingerie. But they don't even do anything. The entire video, Dean is literally never awake. And I'm assuming these cameras run 24/7. So if you really thought that he was cheating, why not fast forward to the part where they have sex? Like, is this what men who cheat do? They're like, hey, my wife's gone. Why don't you come walk around the bedroom while I sleep? So fucking stupid. And plus the video's skipping a bunch of stuff. I actually thought it was like digitally edited, but it turns out that it's not. So this whole thing is just so stupid, and it's like a major plot point too. Like this fuels the entire second half of the episode, and like kind of the next episode is this dumb shit. So the girl that's walking around in his bedroom is dressed like the daughter of the mass murder guy that was in the house earlier, pretending to be the home inspector. So we cut to Dean talking to Dakota, like on the street. I guess they were meeting there. I don't fucking know. And Dakota tells him that he's the one who put the camera in his bedroom and he sent it to his boss, which is a total piece of shit move. Like, I get you're mad at him for accusing you of being the watcher or whatever, but I mean, come on. And also, it just never fucking gets addressed here that he put a camera in their bedroom without asking. Like, you understand what people do in their bedrooms, right? Like, would you not immediately call him a fucking pervert and be pissed and not let him back in your house? I mean, if anything, it justifies Dean being an asshole to him. So, again, with some more of the Netflix political bullshit, he talks about how dangerous it is for him to even be in a police station with his mom and a lawyer because he's black. And Dean just apologizes like a total bitch. Doesn't even call him out for putting that camera in the bedroom. I wouldn't, doesn't even ask, hey, did you put one in my fucking daughter's bedroom that you're trying to get with? Bitch. So we cut back to the beginning where Nora's pissed about the tape. She doesn't believe Dean. Tells him to go stay at a motel. And even though he didn't do anything wrong, he just like simpers away like a giant pussy. So he goes and sits in his car at night on guard because he's obviously worried about the shit going on at the house. And he sees the couple that he was told were shot in the face coming home late at night, obviously still alive. And he sees the guy who said he previously owned the house as an actor in an infomercial. So that's where the episode ends, is we find out that the murder-suicide was actually just a double homicide, is what we're going to find out in like 5 minutes. So yeah, a lot happened in this episode. Obviously, it's 100% fiction at this point, but it's just so stupid. It's the only sexless sex tape ever. No one pointing out blatant crimes. Dean gets blamed for fucking everything, even though his daughter is a total dick, and his wife just turns on him like no fucking hesitation. And again, they have footage from the entire night, and they can see that he wasn't awake whenever she's in the room. I guess we're just gonna ignore that. And then the supposedly murdered couple that I guess no one recognized the bodies just pops back up, and they're like, hey, what's up? So everything here is just really stupid. And the thing with the tapes that pisses me off too is this is actually how they figure out that he didn't do anything, is by using the video footage. So like this thing that's a huge plot point that makes no sense to begin with, they also undo their own stupid ass plot point like an episode later. Alright, so episode 5 starts off, and when Nora was in a hotel, she got a call, and it was just somebody breathing heavily on the phone. And this was like episode 2, I must have skipped over it. She goes through their phone records for proof of Dean's cheating, and sees that this call was from the house, so she assumes that he lied to her again. And like I said, just straight under the bus for Dean from his wife. She thinks he was pressured because of the money and was trying to scare her to sell the house, and then she accuses him of being the watcher to the PI. Like, how little faith does she have to just turn on her fucking husband this fast, who literally just bought them a multi-million-dollar home? I mean, in real life, it was only $1 million. Well, only $1 million. In the show, it's $3 million. Either way, it's a nice-ass house. But whatever. So Karen's trying to buy the house from the 2 people who were supposed to be dead. We go back to Nora and the PI, and the PI's handwriting expert says that the letter K on the envelope matches one of Dean's, and only like 10% of people do it that way, so it's likely that he wrote one of the letters. Then Nora finds out Dean is taking like $130K from loan sharks because they're dealing with all this shit, and Dean confronts the actor who's the previous owner, and the previous owner essentially says he was telling the truth and fuck you. Again, no payoff there, nothing comes from that. So we go to Nora. All her artwork is sold. She's back at the house and sees someone watching her. And it's the weird hippie neighbor lady. And she wants her to come to a lunch for the not dead now lady and bring something. So they do lunch, and the not dead lady says that essentially her son was crazy and killed 2 people who were similar to them. So both women confessed that they thought the watcher was related to them, and they got letters that said an ode to a house in the mail about how much someone liked their home and admired it. And there's a guy making noises in the background of the house, and the people that live there that aren't Nora just pretend it didn't happen to fuck with her. No, sorry, we cut, and Dean is with Dakota. Dakota says he looked through all the tapes, and that the girl never showed up or left the house on tape. And again, guess they just didn't look at the fact they didn't have sex in the bedroom, but whatever. Dakota shows this to Nora. She asks him to tell the truth or it's divorce. So she asked about the girl. Obviously, he didn't sleep with her. She asked about the letters, and he says he did write the last one. And this is never explained in the show why he did this. Like in real life, a couple years into it, the guy actually did send letters to the neighbors to try to get revenge because he was so pissed off about the whole situation. It was kind of driving him crazy. But in the show, he just writes a letter to them, and it's never really explained why. I mean, I guess the implication is that I don't even know what the implication is because Nora's been wanting to sell the house the whole time, so I'm not sure what the purpose is. It makes no fucking sense. Anyway, so they get the DNA results, and apparently it's from a woman. Dean says this helps nothing. The person could have written it and then just gave it to a woman to send. Karen is trying to get Nora to still sell, way under asking price. And then Nora goes to the country club, runs into the cop who's on a date with Karen, calls Dean. He shows up, and they start accusing them of being the watcher together to get her the house cheap, like under market price. So they go online and find this Ode to a House Facebook group that started with some teacher. And then they go into the basement and find a tunnel into their basement. And there's essentially this network of tunnels that goes from their basement to all the neighbors' houses. They see someone in black and chase him, but he gets away. And this is probably the dumbest part of the entire show. Because the show shows us that the murderer guy is the one in the tunnel. In real life, they obviously never figure out who did it. But in the show, they literally show us who did it. And then it just doesn't resolve itself in the end. And it makes no fucking sense. So that's where the episode ends. And this episode is crazy because the entire thing is sort of irrelevant to the story again. Like all this drama about him being a cheater and writing the letters, and none of it pays off. In the end, he says, I didn't do it, and she says, okay. He says, I wrote a letter, and she says, okay. That's it. So like the last 5 minutes was the only plot point of the episode, and this doesn't get paid off in any substantial way, other than to make the show dumber. Episode 6 starts off with them going to the cop. The cop tells them, fuck you, You embarrass me in public. I'm not going to do my job. And then Dean says, I'll call the FBI. The cop says, I have friends there. They won't do their job either. And this is just so nonsensical that I can't believe they put it in the show. And to me, this is more of the Netflix politics shit slipping in. Like the cop has been useless the entire fucking time. And now they have a lead and he's just outright refusing to do his job. And this is so unethical, it's astonishing. Not to mention, this guy isn't the only fucking cop at the station. And he could just keep going to other police departments in the area until someone helps him. It's fucking insane. That no cop in New Jersey does their job, I guess. Because fuck this guy, because he was rude. As if cops don't deal with rude fucking people on a daily basis. So, anyway, they track down the ex-wife of the guy who started this ode to a house thing. That guy left her for a former student. Because, men are all pieces of shit, am I right? So this guy, Kaplan, who's the one who started this course, was apparently jealous of a childhood friend's house. And the sister got nasty letters like his. And she told Kaplan to fuck off. This was obviously when they were way older. So this was a childhood friend's house, which was now owned by the sister. When they got older, she started getting nasty letters and told Kaplan to fuck off. So they confront Kaplan in the grocery store. He says he doesn't know what they're talking about. He gets mad and comes and stands outside their house. And this is another part that just disappears. So we just wasted half of the second to last episode. Again. We cut to the weird neighbor's house, and the murderer guy is there just hanging out with him and the hippie lady. And all the neighbors are in on it is kind of what they're going for. And this is supposed to be like your dun 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 moment. But it's just fucking stupid. Dink goes to confront them. They say fuck off. The cops won't help him, so he has nothing. He has a dream about Kaplan shooting his son, and he starts drinking early the next morning. The not dead lady harasses him outside again. And then we go to dinner with him inviting Dakota over to apologize. Not sure why he's apologizing. Dakota's the one who threw him under the bus with a camera in his bedroom that shouldn't have been there and was wrong. But he fixed his own wrong mistake, I guess. I don't fucking know. While he's also dating his 16-year-old daughter. But yeah, you owe him an apology. Fucking idiot. So they decided to sell the house. They got an offer that was actually going to let them make a little bit of profit. But then it got leaked about the letters and shit by Karen because she's a total bitch. That's her only character trait. Yeah, so this is another wasted episode. 7 episodes, and I think I've said that 4 of them were wasted so far. Well, really, I would say 5, but whatever. And really, this show probably should have just stuck to the story pretty closely and been 2 or 3 episodes. I mean, this one, again, all the stuff that they bring up in this episode, there's no payoff, and then it just disappears. Like, the plot of this show is seriously compressed into, like, the first episode, and then, like, the last 15-20 minutes of episode 7, if that tells you anything. And then we just get unnecessary and repetitive and stupid drama for the 5 episodes in between, with a pretty unsatisfactory ending. I actually thought they might do something bold, like change the ending completely so they catch the guy, but that's clearly not what they do or what they were going for. So, on to the finale. Nora is at her fancy art thing. We go home and Dean is just a crazy person now, in the bathroom obsessing about the Watcher. The PI had cancer the whole season and is on her deathbed. They go home and they fight, and Nora says, the Watcher didn't ruin this family, you did. So a situation where, the husband buys a nice house and is trying to deal with a fucking stalker. His fault the family's fucked up. Okay. Dean visits the PI, and she says that she was the Watcher and the house was hers. Obviously, this is all just to give Dean peace because he's going crazy. So this is, again, just like 20 minutes of wasted time. That as soon as she starts talking, anyone with 2 brain cells is like, oh, okay, this is bullshit. Because it makes no fucking sense. So Dean goes to apologize to the not dead lady because he sent her a letter. They never really even mentioned that other than this conversation, so I'm not sure what it was supposed to be. And she's like the nicest she's been all season. and pretty much says she doesn't care because her husband's dead and her son murdered 2 people. So she's like kind of had a reversal of character. But she says that no black lady ever lived in that house. And they go to the PI's funeral. Her daughter says that she never lived there. Shocks no one except for the dumb fucks in the show. So they get a buyer for the house at a loss. Another LLC. We get a glimpse of the weird neighbors all meeting up. We cut again. Karen bought the house. Fucking shocker. Total cunt. Nora's there. She says she'll be watching because I guess she's in on being a creep now. I don't even fucking know. The neighbors come by and Karen's rude to them. So that night, Karen gets a letter in the dumbwaiter, and then her dog dies and she runs away. And she sells the house after like 2 days. And the watcher in this scene, which he hasn't done all fucking season, literally walks up to her. He's like on the steps 5 feet from her, and then just lets her run away. Dean's at therapy, and he's still bringing the house up to his therapist, which his therapist is like, it's not good for you, whatever. Someone else moved in, and then every person in the show is still obsessing over the house. And, you know, they all kind of like are staring at it and drive by, and Dean talks to the new guy that moved in. And it's weird because the show starts where you're like, you know, the whole thing's about a stalker. But then as the season goes on, it just becomes this weird obsession with the house. And the stalker thing becomes like almost the backstory. So yeah, I read the actual story for the show, I think after episode 3, because it was just so weird and there was so much crazy shit going on. I wanted to know what the real story was. And that's when I found out the entire thing was bullshit. And I'm fine with changes, like I said. You know, if you make them good, but man, they just make every person in this show a fucking retard, like 2 episodes in. And then you get all this unrelated stuff to fill time, like the fighting with the daughter, the husband-wife drama, his job drama, the father-daughter drama. And part of what makes this so frustrating is that none of it pays off for anything. Things just kind of stop showing up, and you're like, okay, well, I guess that's it then. And if you're doing filler for 90% of a show, maybe you should rewrite the fucking show. Make it shorter. Like the Dahmer show by the same people was 10 episodes. I don't remember a single episode being like, man, they really didn't need that one. Like every episode had a point. It showed character development. It gave more of the story. It was more accurate. It's just fucking crazy. I mean, maybe in the Dahmer show, some of the stuff, like the weird gay stuff, went on a bit long. Like with the mannequin and all that shit. But, you know, who cares? They didn't have an episode that was just disposable. So I don't want to go on too much longer about this, but if you watch the show, I'm curious if people liked it or if people thought it fizzled out like I did. And if you haven't watched the show, for some reason you fucking listen to this, just go read the article. You can read it in probably half an hour. It is pretty lengthy, but essentially what you'll find out is that the family didn't move in, kind of had to live with their parents for a bit in a friend's beach house for a bit. They tried to split the lot into 2 smaller houses and sell it, or a halfway home. The neighborhood said no. And then eventually they sold the house at a $400,000 loss. I guess to the bank, because I'm pretty sure no one lives there still. So, yeah. Yeah, and that's all there is to say about the show. It was massively disappointing for all the traction that it got on Netflix. But, all right. See ya. Thanks.